Hi again, everybody. So this is the first week of Junicorn that I did. I chose the prompts from my, hi Marcia, from my Patreon. So I put up 3 options to vote for. You can see there was baked goods, lattes, or fruit. Basically, I wanted my first week to be food themed in general, and my patrons chose fruit. So I decided I wanted to theme it around a specific fruit and not just like a fruit basket in general. So I started out just drawing some different types of fruit. I'd done a couple sketches just of like just unicorn body shapes to kind of warm up and thinking about little ideas for different prompts. But in order to get started today, I worked on different fruit types to begin with. If you hear grumping in the background, it's Marcia because it's close to supper time and she's being annoying. So as you can see, I drew a few different varieties. I had lemon, apple, I think some strawberries. I ended up deciding on a pear because I kind of like the idea of trying to include basically the pear shape into the design more. So I played with a few different ideas. I was trying to figure out how I wanted to incorporate the mane and the tail in this as well, because it's not like fruit have hair. And so initially I drew sort of maybe like a big leaf for the mane and then the little pear stem for the tail as well as for the horn. But I didn't really love the single leaf, so you'll see later I kind of switched it to that curly, full-looking mane, and I had to stop because my cat jumped on my shoulder, so then, yeah, I had to go back to drawing. But I'd done a few different types. Normally I draw my horse faces, like the one I'm doing just there now, where I have the nose kind of go down. But in order to get that shape to be more pear-like, I decided to do the upturned nose instead, and I like the result of that. I ended up really enjoying the look of the unicorn looking over its shoulder, so I decided to kind of expand on that and pop out one little foot just so it looks like it was mid-step or like turning to look at you. And I was trying to decide if I wanted to keep the tail actually being a stem or if I wanted it to be like a bushy little stem-like tail. I ended up with just sticking with the stem in the end, but I preferred the big bushy mane as well, and I thought initially about maybe making it a pear tree mane, but I didn't end up sticking with that. Um, it was a pretty fun little exercise and I really enjoyed it. You'll see later when I'm painting, I'll talk a little bit more about my design choices. But yeah, just watch me sketch for a little bit, I guess. I like yellowy body. I need like a... Yeah, it kind of works. I mean, yellow and green always looks good together, so... it's not like it'd be terrible. I can also add little, like, leaves to the feet. I always like to... Oh, thanks, buddy. And you hit the camera. Guinness, your ass is in frame. Let's just, oh God. So sorry about the interruption by my cat, but he thought the best place for him to be was directly in front of the camera. Up until that point, he'd been slung across my shoulder like a, I don't even know, like a shawl, and was sleeping there. So I was doing all right for a little bit until he decided to leap off my shoulder onto the art table. In any case, right before he did, I was picking out my colors. So I got some like cheap pencil crayons, and I was using those to figure out what combination of colors I wanted. Because there's like yellow peaches and green peaches, and I know there's some sort of there's some like reddish, brownish peaches. Peaches? Oh my god, pears as well. But I decided to go with the green and yellow pear kind of color scheme, just because that's the pears that usually grow around here are the green or the yellow variety. And I switched over to a 4x6 sheet of watercolor paper. I believe it's Strathmore. I don't remember the weight. It's cold press. And I started doing my sketch. And so I was trying to kind of keep that same flow from the sketch in the original drawing while also fixing some of the issues. So, like I pulled that back, oh my god, what are the sides? My back left foot in closer to that front foot that's planted, so they had like this nice little triangle shape to them. I fixed the angle a little bit on that leg so it wasn't sticking out directly sideways necessarily. I was having issues with the shoulder that I seem to not have that issue with the sketch. It took me a while to get that to look right, but I mean, that's why I'm drawing it again with pencil so I can fix it. I really, really enjoyed this pear-shaped unicorn. I loved giving it the big butt. I loved doing the little pear-shaped face. It was very fun to use this prompt, and I'm excited for my next prompt, which I believe they've picked, but I'm going to give it another day or two just to make sure nobody else puts in a vote that changes that result. It took me a lot to fix this face and get it right before I started inking. I didn't want it to be too long and flat. I needed that like squished, really rounded shape so that it would convey, at least what I was hoping would convey, a nice pear shape in the head as well. And then once I started inking, I basically, you can see in my hand, it's a micron. It's a 3. It's a good size. I like that size. It's a little bit thick, but not too thick. The bigger I draw, the thicker I make my lines, because I like simple, strong line work too, so I went with that. I also added little leaves to all the legs, as well as the tail and the horn, because I wanted them to be very obviously like little stickies, instead of just skin, flesh. And then I went back in with a little bit of fur texture here and there. I had to wait for that to dry, obviously, wait for your inks to dry, but I came back in with my watercolors. So first I mixed a nice pear, that's what we're painting, a nice pear yellow. I wanted it to be a little more golden, but not too bright. I needed it to be like an earthy yellow, if you know what that means. Sort of more muted, less neon. And I basically just did a single wash of that across the entire body to use as a base, so that basically as I built up colors on top, it would keep that yellow tone in behind the greens and the browns, so they'd all sort of meld together. So I mixed it a little thicker and added a little more orange pigment to it, and sort of went in and added some spots here and there to just sort of blend out and make a nice Marsha shush, make a nice variance in the in the skin fur color, which I think was a good effect. I really enjoyed that I did that. Like, the more I added, the more I liked it. And I started to add some variation in the legs too. I kind of wanted to go from a little bit darker to lighter, and then later on I add more tones like greens and browns. So I think those layered up really nicely. And then of course do the little like face blushy that I like to do. My first mix of the green, I basically mixed it directly into the yellow I'd already made in order to basically incorporate those colors in and start working on like a yellowy, earthy green, so that they would all work together and look very pear colored and not have too much variance. It's a great way, like if you're done with one color and you're adding another color to it that isn't supposed to be drastically different from the first one, it's always a good idea to just mix it in with your leftover paint of the other one. I mean, obviously don't do it with like orange and blue because you'll just get brown, but it's still a good option. I also ran out of the green. So you can see here, the last 2 leaves were really light because I was just trying to pick up pigment wherever I could and add them in. But it was still a nice, like, earthy, pastel-y green color. And then for the mane, I thought, oh, I'll get it a little more olive green, and that will really stand out and be totally different. They're basically the exact same tone. It made the friggin' mane not stand out at all. So you'll see I go back in a little bit later and I darkened it up with another layer, I think just of this olive green. I may have added a little bit of something else to it, maybe some blue or teal, to kind of just give it a little bit of differentiation. There you go, see, come back in. And I basically just so that her head wasn't just fading into her mane. And I just wanted to, just have it have more variance in it. I do work very simply, and I like to do very stylized, simple art, but it doesn't mean you can't try your best to maintain some of those practices with tone and contrast and things like that. Once that was all done and dry, I decided to add like a simple little circle in the background. I didn't want to add too much just because I couldn't really think of anything that would suit other than maybe like some orchard trees, but I thought the circle was nice and simple, and I went with a sort of a peachy pink color to complement, so I mixed in those same like yellowy oranges that I used to make that yellow more earthy, and I went in with that on the background. And then I went and mixed another green, and I came back in and added some leaf detail, and I added a little magic little sparkle thing to the horn. She will not stop grumping. And then I added in some just details into the mane as well. And then I came back in with my iridescent paint, which I love. And I used I think it's Jupiter is the color. Yeah, Jupiter, which is like an iridescent bronzy green. I used that on the horn to give it a little more sparkle. And then I put some of Venus in behind to give sparkle to the background. So there's my unicorn. I hope you like my paracorn, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for the support, guys.